Headstart is basically one of the largest enabling startup enabling ecosystem community in India, where we are in existence since 2007 and enabling so many founders and entrepreneurs, and we are we are one of the non-profit company, and the thing is the core reason why we are we created this community is just because so that we are reachable to all corners of the country, or all founders or budding entrepreneurs who want to become a successful startup or successful founder in their life. So we are all volunteers, volunteer driven organization, and yes, we are now in an existence of existing we are in existing in 30 plus cities, covering the two to three tier cities as well now, and we have impacted 1500 plus ventures so far. And when I talk about ventures, we actually enable them from the start of their startup journey till they become a well established venture till now in India. 1800 plus community meetups we have organized so far pan India across 25 cities. And if I say according about the meetups, we have seen a good capacity of founders coming up and sharing their ideas and challenges and to the peer and to the whole community around. Then we have till date, as I said, it's a volunteer driven organization. We have 500 plus volunteers in an organization who are rigorously serving to paying back to the community and helping founders no matter what it is or what it is with, and ensuring that the ecosystem is growing in our country. So here are some of our blockbuster initiatives so far that we have, done in last decade. Headstart Mentor, it's an initiative where we have an expert from the industry mentoring few selected startups and suggesting them, advising them wherever they are stuck in their journey. Startup Saturday is a flagship initiative where we ensure that entrepreneurs who are successful in their life are coming on the platform and sharing their journeys and entrepreneurship challenges they face in their journey so far. So Head Start Life is another initiative that got a good, brought up a good impact in this COVID era time, where we were able to communicate with all entrepreneurs from every corner of India, no matter, because see, earlier it was physical meetup, but this live came up to be a big thing for us and helped a lot of entrepreneurs virtually. So let's start me. This is the closest of all, to me, as I'm leading it at Delhi. So this is a platform where we are enabling women entrepreneurs, empowering them in their startup journey, and ensuring that they become a successful unicorn in the coming time. Next is Headstart Hire. This is a platform where we do the matchmaking of the potential and young minds with the good built startups and organizations, where they can collaborate, they can come together and be together as a team and go forward in the establishment of the startups or the different organizations. Headstart, Kickstart is one platform is and the most what as we say that funding is very important in the startup ecosystem for the founders. So at Headstart, this Kickstart enables that investments happening, where we help founders to connect to the investors, the right investors, and help them in raising funds. Like this, we have many more initiatives, uh, like taking care of the mental health of the founders and entrepreneurs. We have we have Headstart Wellness, we have Headstart Boosters, where we partner with a lot of organizations, helping enabling again startup founders with connecting them with the right resources and the credits. And so far we have many more of them. If you just name it, and we have it already, helping founders to have everything on the table to grow and flourish. So coming to the few success stories that happened at Headstart. Everybody knows Flipkart.com. They made their first demo pitch on the Startup Saturday Bangalore, as we have lightning pitch, where we ask startup founders to come and present their pitch, their startup to the live audience and take live feedback. So Flipkart.com was the first of it on Startup Saturday Bangalore. Then we had Free Charge. Free Charge, they also made the first demo pitch on Startup Saturday Mumbai. And then it was MobiQuick, Startup Saturday Delhi. We had Ola. Ola also made the first pitch at started in Mumbai. So there are many more such, startups and organizations who actually started with us and made their first, lightning pitch with us to get a live feedback. And now we all know where they are today. So some of the good big partnerships that we have so far in last decade, like few of them are on the screen. We have HubSpot, we have Digital Ocean, 1000 Startup NASCOM, Axelar that helps in startup acceleration. We have Red Bull, we have .NET, and AWS Activate from Amazon. Apart from not only these, we also have collaborated with a lot of governmental organization, Niti Aayog, everybody knows it. We are we have collaborated from every corner to every government organization where we can ensure that nobody is left out in the ecosystem, and we are helping everybody with like just paying it back to the ecosystem. So Startup Uttarakhand is there, Kerala Startup Mission is there. So from Andhra Pradesh, we have Andhra Pradesh Innovation Society, and we have from even Gujarat, we have Startup Igniting the Future. So similarly, we have many more organizations that we have collaborated with in order to enable the ecosystem. Then now we are expanding with our demographics. Now we are also in many two tier, three tier cities. In fact, the four tier cities where we are ensuring that more and more founders could be created and bring up success stories. Then, as I said, we are a volunteer-driven organization. We are 500 plus currently, and we from our daily life. So every volunteer have their daily job to do. Either they are running the startup or doing some domain job, and we ensure that we are taking out some time, and devoting it to what I said, paying back to the society, right? So we are enabling startup ecosystem in those few number of hours, and we together as a team ensure that any founder that is facing a problem in their journey, we are solving it. And hence, if you are interested to join our organization, this is our link, bit.ly / volunteer underscore hs. You fill that form and we'll ensure that you join us and help the ecosystem growing. Then you can reach us on all these handles for any update you want regarding all our initiatives that we have, end-to-end solution that we could provide to you for your startup challenges. You reach us on Headstart, on our all the social media pages, and we'll definitely revert you back. If there is anything that you want to share with us or talk to any of our team members, we have our city lead Ashish Gulati and Vanya as a co-city lead. You can reach them on delhi@headstart.in. So now, coming to tell you about our today's speaker, Chalinda Abikun from Sri Lanka. So it's a Sri Lankan ecosystem, so it's a big opportunity to know what is our neighboring country is doing when it comes to funding, investments, and even growing and enabling challenges of the founders in this COVID era as well. So I'll just give a quick introduction of him. So he's founder and CEO of Lankan Angel Network. So it's the first alliance of angel investors. He focuses on the startups since a good period of time and making the founders pitch ready, in telling them what they lack and how they can be a better version of themselves and get a successful funding that they are looking for. And he has actually mentored 300 plus startups and successfully helped to launch 50 plus startups there. And he's also an awardee and a lot of more experiences I'm sure he has, which you can share, Chalinda, today, and take us through the all the experience that you have so far and where you can help founder when it comes to making them pitch ready.
All right, great. Thank you, Priyanka, for that introduction. I think I must first thank you and your 500 plus, super men and women who have done some amazing work. And thank you for reaching out to me on LinkedIn. And I think, that's one of the things that we've been able to do thanks to COVID, or, one of the positives that have come through, and we are having this session. It's wonderful to be speaking to you all. I think more than me sharing my insights, I'm looking forward to learning from all of you. So feel free to ask questions. I think this is a very casual conversation. Absolutely love India. I've been traveling to India since 2010. Initially started working with NASCOM on a lot of these things. And last year, I also had the opportunity to be a bit more closer to the startup ecosystem, especially in Bangalore, Mumbai, and Chennai. Um, love Bangalore. I haven't visited Delhi yet. So far, Bangalore is the best, and not because of the startup ecosystem, but mainly because of the microbrewery culture that you have there. I love my beer. So it's great to be here, and I think let me just sort this out. How do I share?
There's a share screen option. You can
Yeah.
start
Oh,
sharing
okay.
your.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Okay. Here we go. It's very hard to see now. Everybody's moved into a dark theme. So if you do a presentation on a dark theme, you can't really see the screen. All right, super. So as Priyanka mentioned, I am, slight correction, I'm not the founder of the Lankan Angel Network. I'm the CEO of the Lankan Angel Network. Lankan Angel Network has been there since 2012. And where I come from, so just to give you all an understanding, so we didn't have a startup ecosystem here in Sri Lanka prior to 2009. I'm sure most of you know we had a civil war here for 30 plus years. Um, and hence a lot of the youth at that time was, mainly focused on either leaving the country, or trying to, get into one of the big corporates where there was, job security, and whatnot. So we didn't have that entrepreneurial energy. So I started, when I graduated in 2009. It was the same time period the war ended, and I started off with initially being an ecosystem builder. So I was part of the government, did a lot of ecosystem building work around the country, visited almost all the state universities, the private universities, trying to get everybody encouraged, start their own venture. Um, by the way, I was admitting people while Priyanka was going, so I hope that was okay. So there are a few people have come up, so I'll keep on adding them as well. So that's how I started. I was doing that. I designed an incubator, the country's first incubator, which was funded by the government plus the World Bank. Ran that for a while, and during that time period, everything started developing, and I first wanted to move towards uh, being a lot more closer to the entrepreneur's shoes to understand what it really was like. When Priyanka was, explaining the work that Headstart do, one of the things she touched upon was mental health. I think that is super, super important right now. Something that we overlook. Uh, and I've been in the entrepreneur shoes, and I've gone through that very, very dark periods in my life as well. And I've seen others going through it, and we're trying to help everyone, which is not, spoken of uh, too much by media. Media is always about fundraising, getting acquisitions. It's not about the rest of it. So I spent a lot of time being an entrepreneur, helped launch a couple of companies, growing them, and now I'm on the other side of the table, investing in companies. So this is where it's coming from. A lot of these things are, it's also counterintuitive as well. I place certain areas in the flow where I'm going to open it up for questions if you all have, because I don't believe in waiting till the end of a presentation to, ask the question, because by that time you most likely have forgotten what you wanted to ask. So we'll go ahead if somebody wants. I'm assuming somebody from the organizing committee will also help me kind of, give me a pointer saying that there is a question. I'll take that up on. Right. So we're going to get into pitching and essentially, pitch decks. Before everything, one other thing. So I spent the last, about 4 years pitching to investors, either to raise funds for startups or to raise capital for the fund that I currently manage. So we raised a small micro VC fund where we are investing in technology, early stage technology startups. And that was where, for the past, we started in December last year, and to this date, we've been speaking to, at least I would have gone after about 500 plus angel investors, both who are here in Sri Lanka as well as Sri Lankans who are overseas. So it was, all these learnings are essentially what I'm going to be basing today's presentation on. Um, right. The first thing that you want to understand is what is the purpose of pitching. And I think, this seems very simple. Your purpose is fundraising majority of the time, but it's actually there's a lot more behind that purpose. And this is what investors really look for. And it actually starts with two things. Your pitch deck essentially is about, why is this startup important for me? Right? And the other one is, why is it important for this startup to exist? Every single slide that you have in your deck essentially communicates or answers one of these two questions. It's that simple, right? So I'm breaking it things down. When you are pitching, everything that you have to say about the product, the market, the customer, it conveys something about these two questions. And you need to understand that, and you need to understand what's your purpose in it, so that you can easily express and explain those 2 points. So this to me is the most important thing I would have figured out or learned in the last 24 to 36 months. A lot of the time what people go and they pitch an idea, everything is good. There's absolutely nothing with the idea, the problem that they're trying to solve, or the market or the technology that they've used. But as an investor, I can't really seem to understand why solving this particular problem is important for this entrepreneur. And that's where everything starts falling apart. Um, and the reason for that is, right now, entrepreneurs are essentially the rock stars, or they're the movie stars. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur for whatever reason. So from an investor standpoint, we are always trying to kind of see through all that clutter and understand, why is this important. If he couldn't solve this problem, what would he do? Is there something else, or is he doing this because it's a fashion? It's fashionable to be an entrepreneur now, or is it really, what's the link between the problem and the person? So that's the key thing that we are looking at. Because if we can understand that in the first, I would say 2 to 3 minutes, then the rest of the things, you have the attention of the investor. And then they will focus on the second one, which is why is it important for this startup to exist? A lot of the time, if people don't understand, the investors can't answer this question while the pitch is going on, all the information that you say afterward kind of falls apart. Right. The second person is you. Especially when it comes to early stage funding, you all have heard this. People are investing in you. We don't know you from Adam. You don't, most of the chances, you don't have a track record. This is your first time being an entrepreneur. If you have a track record, then you wouldn't be, I'm assuming you wouldn't be in this session, and because you already have built a network of investors and you start working with them. So you want to be able to communicate why you're a good bet. What are those qualities? And this is where, again, these things get covered in the slide in different ways. So I'll give an example for this particular first point. Why you should invest in us. When I'm looking at a company, let's say they are bootstrapped, and they manage to gain a lot of traction, or a significant or a decent amount of traction with zero spent. They found ways to growth hack. They found ways to hustle through and get to that traction, which validates product market fit, or which validates there is an opportunity. And you want to see that in an entrepreneur, because from an investor standpoint, as much as the what you call the opportunity that you present, the market size, valuations and all of that, we're trying to understand, if I give this person money, do they know how to utilize that capital in a strategic and a cost effective way to be able to grow the company to that valuation that they're talking about, or to that revenue streams. A lot of the people, a lot of the times, you can, if you want, you can bust $1 million in one day, right? Or you can stretch $1 million for 2 years or even more, depending on how smart you are. So that's the one thing that we want to, and the other part is, why you make a great team. Most of the time, I haven't seen this too many instances in India, at least not in the tier 1 cities. So I'm not too sure about the tier 2 cities. But if you look at Sri Lanka, uh, people are excited about startups. They find a great problem, and then typically it's the friends that get together and build a solution. And they are so excited about the solutions, they don't really look at whether the chemistry between the friends and the team will really contribute to the growth of a company. And it's very hard to actually evaluate that. The only way you can also evaluate that is through experience and burning your hands. And I've burned my hands so many times. I've lost so much of money in investing in wrong teams. So much of bad experience. Now when I get a team, I know what the gaps are, right? Unfortunately, it's very hard to productize that experience, that tacit knowledge. It would be fantastic if you can productize that, and make a business out of it. Something that I've always thought would be great to do, but it's quite challenging. But again, going back to the pitch, in the pitch you need to be able to bring out these nuances. um, these are the subtle things that really helps build confidence in the investors. And these are the points that if you do well, even if your target market or even the product that you're doing is not up to the standards of investors, they would still consider investing in you purely because they're investing in you. You're trying to build trust within. So that's why whether your pitching time with an investor is 10 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour, whatever that time period is, you want to use that time to build confidence, right? And that's where actually, even if they don't want to do it, if you manage to do it, they will also introduce you to some other parties, and that's a great thing. And I've done that to people that I felt, it's, I'm not going to invest in these people, but I know so and so might be interested in speaking to them purely because they had these characters. I think there's a bit of background noise. That's from my side. Since we are on lockdown, we have all these vegetable vendors going and selling their stuff. So I apologize. Just let me know if it's
No, no, it's totally fine. Don't worry.
yeah, right. So what does this mean? Um, See, investors are looking. Uh, if you're applying for a grant, let me put it this way: when you're applying for a grant or donor funding, you're essentially trying to prove that your eligibility and that you're a deserving startup. And in most times, 99% or 90% of startups are deserving. They deserve to be funded. But from the investor standpoint, it's not about you being deserving. It's about, can you bring me a return, right? Um, so that's the most important thing that you also need to understand. How do I not only show that I'm a deserving startup, which is what we spoke about in the last 3 slides, but how do we also show that by investing in us, we're going to give you a return which is north of ideally 3 to 4x, in a time span of 3 to 5 years, um, which will allow you to invest in more people, more startups. That's what drives them. So this is the key thing that you need to keep in mind. A lot of the time, uh, founders stop at showing why they are a deserving startup. It's very, very hard for them to explain how they can deliver value or returns. And it's also quite hard to show that, especially when you're in early stages, which is why it doesn't have to be a return on investment in terms of monetary. It's about the skills that you bring into. So you need, as much as the investors do due diligence on you, I strongly recommend that you also do due diligence on investors. Find out what are the other startups that they have invested in, and can your product support some of these startups or complement them. That becomes valuable to the investor. Or are they in a specific domain, and your product can also help other domains expand his horizon, all of that. So you want to be able to do that a little bit of research. um, so before we go into the next session, I just want to make sure that if you have any questions, we can take them now. Any clarifications, if you want to even disagree, please bring it. I'm all ears. Then if not, we can move on to the next session. I mean talking too fast? Is it clear? Any feedback is helpful. All right, I guess we are all good, and I'm assuming I'm clear, and I'm not speaking too fast. So we'll go to the next session. So first and foremost, disclaimer: I'm no Moses, right? I can't solve all your problems. I don't have that ability to really end of this session, you guys go and start pitching to investors and they say yes and they start writing checks. That's not going to happen. This is just about sharing my experience, things that I've learned, which hopefully will help you improve your pitch deck, all of that. And majority of the time, what I've learned is, the best way to learn is by doing mistakes, at least for me. There are people who are good at learning at school. I wasn't good at learning in school. There are people who are good at learning from online education. I am a person who have learned from failing, multiple times on a daily basis, and that helps me connect the dots. Why? And that helps me go forward. So pitching and engaging with investors is also quite similar. You have to go. You need to get punched in the mouth a few times by a few investors. Some will haggle, some will be rude to you. Go through that whole process. It'll really help you kind of mold yourself as well. So don't take it as a negative. Try to take it as a positive, and take things forward. Right. So the second segment is about understanding what you're building. So from a English language standpoint, if you say a new business and a startup, it's considered as a synonym. They're equals. You can use internally. But startups essentially break into 6 categories, right? So these are the broad 6 types of companies. You have your lifestyle, SME, viable, corporate, social, and scalable. And what this means is that you need to understand what type of a startup are you building, or what do you want to build, right? For an example, an SME, why this is challenging is that an SME can also be a viable company. It can also be a scalable company, right? the reason why it's an SME is purely because of the founders, own reasons to begin with. um, Same thing with a lot of these other things. Lifestyle businesses can eventually become SMEs. It's all to do with you, and you want to be comfortable. So what this also mean is that, again, every business needs money, but whether that money comes from external investors, equity investors, or whether it comes from a loan, and all of these things purely depends on what type of a company you want to build. Typically investors want to focus on your the right hand side of, they want to invest in companies that they can either sell to, or they can scale large enough and go IPO, and that's where they make that return. And this goes without saying. Why I thought of putting this slide is I've come across a lot of startups. For an example, I'll give a good example where the idea, the product, and the market, everything is perfect. It's a scalable. You can even grow it really fast and push it to an acquisition or even go IPO. But that requires a level of commitment and effort from the founders. And the founder is not really prepared mentally, physically, and psychologically to put in that effort. They want to have their weekends, they want to spend time with their family, go on vacation, all of that, and that's perfectly fine. But they still need money to grow the business. So what really happens is they might go and pitch to an investor. A investor would really look at, hey, the product is good, the market is good, wow, we can really scale it, and they'll get excited by looking at the traction, and they'll invest. And then now they try to put pressure. Now they're chasing after numbers, hitting quarterly, this thing, and all of a sudden this entrepreneur who was really enjoying what he was doing is having his life sucked out of him. And this is why we have all these mental health related issues. It's quite depressing. So my suggestion is to really ask yourself, yes, you're excited about being an entrepreneur, you're excited about building a startup, but are you really prepared? So I've done a little bit of calculations, and based on myself, and I realized that for the past 6 years I've been spending at least 65% of my entire time in startups. So in the last 4 years, I've only taken, one overseas vacation, right? And that's the only time I actually flown out of Sri Lanka on holiday with my wife. That's just one time, and that was 2 years ago. And I take 3 vacations per year in Sri Lanka, which does not exceed more than 3 days every time, right? And it's very hard to do this in Sri Lanka because most of you would know we are surrounded by the ocean. We are the best destination for safari outside Africa. So we have all of these locations, and we have, we are blessed with a lot of long holidays and weekends and whatnot. While everybody is out, I'm still, at home building. And it becomes quite depressing at times because everyone, your friends are out, they're taking pictures, they're putting on Instagram, and you absolutely have nothing to post other than your coffee and your laptop, right? And after a while, it becomes sad. You don't want to post that all the time. So this is what's really important. Identify what type of company that you want to build, and depending on that, you will also get an understanding of what type of investors you want to chase after. So that's the important piece. Second, or the third one, we are now coming into the story. So what's your pitch essentially? So the big mistake, the primary objective of the pitch deck is to present a use case. Majority of the time what people are presenting is their idea, and nobody gives what about the idea. They want to understand what's the use case. How do you really, where does it happen? Is it something that really happens only for you? Have you gone out and validated and seen so many people? So think about it from a use case standpoint. This problem happens when A, B, and C takes place. Okay, you have this. You want to be able to understand that. That will tell you why you are raising funding for, depending on the stage that you are. If you are raising capital for validation, which is the earliest stage of fundraising, maybe your typically what we say is early stage funding is for product market fit. It's validation. But what does how do you measure product market fit? You need to be able to demonstrate that to the investors. A lot of the time, people say that we have product market fit, or we have validated, but when you ask them to present that data from a data standpoint, they struggle. And we start digging in deep and we realize, okay, their version of product market fit and what we would have ideally liked is completely different. So make sure that you understand what the signals are. And if you don't know the signals, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. What it means is that that's the question that you need to first understand before you go and raise capital. If I'm raising capital for product market fit, what would product market fit look like? Once, assuming that I get the funding and I start doing all the things that I'm say that I'm going to do, what are the KPIs that I'm going to hit? At which point can I go and say, yes, we've got product market fit, this is working, let's go ahead. Same thing with growth. People come and say, we have done this, we want to now grow our business. What does that mean? Majority of the time when they say they grow, they put their operational cost and they'll say that we are hiring so many people, we are moving into this. That's not growth, right? Increasing the number of heads does not really correlate to growth. You want to be able to demonstrate that in terms of whether it's financials, whether it's customers, users. And I'll give you a good example. There's a big confusion. I don't know if how many of you know the difference between a user and a customer. And the reason why I'm asking this question is majority of the time, especially early stage entrepreneurs, they use this again as synonyms, right? And the difference is a user does not always pay or does not have to pay, right? So for an example, I'm a Facebook user, right? I don't pay for the product, but probably Facebook is a bad example because you are the product in Facebook, as they say. But a customer, the point is that the customer always pays. So for an example, if you take, let's say, an educational product, if you're building an education tech product, your customer might be the student. The user might be the student, the customer might be the parent who's paying for it. So from a KPI standpoint, you need to understand that relationship and how that works for you. And then the third reason, these are just examples that I've given. People say we want to expand. You want to be able to justify why. Why do you want to expand this outside your own city? Why do you want to go beyond Delhi? Have you, what triggered it? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? What's your strategy? None of that is there, but they just blankly say we want to expand to X, Y, and Z cities or X, Y, and Z countries. So think through the process and understand why you're raising capital for. The reason why you raise capital should not be to cover your expenses. That's not the whole objective. Right. Now we are coming into the story part. What are the things that you include in your pitch deck? So these are a few, there's about 15 areas that I look for. Depending on the situation, you can, shift this. It doesn't have to be in this particular order, right? The first five ones typically needs to be there, but then the rest of it, depending on how you craft your story, you can change. That's not the, but the important thing is you need to have answers to all these questions to a certain degree. And I'll get into some examples of both good and bad later on, of a few of these, right? So we first start off with the don'ts, which is the easiest part, right? From a design standpoint, don't use any graphics, animations. And the reason, there are two reasons for this. One is, if you're pitching to investors, try to keep it as simple and plain as possible, because sometimes these investors, they might be old, whatever reason, uh, and they just want to get the information, right? It's not like a competition, it's not an art competition. Majority, sometimes I get these very flashy decks, and it's so annoying to really go through, because all these animations are playing and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what does the information, because for me it's the information that is important, right? Unless you're pitching about something related to creativity and you have to show your creativity, but even then, try to reduce it. Font type, size, stick to fonts which people can easily read, which is why I've given you some examples here. Um, keep it very, very simple. Keep it very big, 25 and above, recommended for everything. And text, theme, formatting, make sure you are consistent in all that you do. It has to be, it's one of the ways that I look at when I'm going through a deck. If they have rushed through the process and they have just sent the deck because they want to, whether there was an application process, and if they haven't taken time, that's also an indication for me, how serious are these guys. Just put some information together and submit it. You don't want type like that. You want to be able to show that, okay, you're serious, you've taken all of this time to do all that. uh, and always use numbers, facts and proofs. I always say, if you have numbers, if you have data, let's look at data. If you have opinions, let's just go with mine. I don't really care about your opinion right now. And it's in a way, I'm being an asshole, point. But then, that's what you got to deal with. I am dealing with me is far better than going and dealing with the actual investors who will kind of ridicule you and all that. So always make sure that you've back your opinions by numbers, data and facts, so that you can say. So this is about the design side of the tech, right? This is about what you're not supposed to say. Don't say that we have a huge market. Doesn't mean anything, right? All the time, and we want to be market leader. All of these things, these are all vanity matrices. Fastest platform, country name, largest, all of these are vanity. You try to say, again, I go back to, you want to be able to put these things in numbers, and I'll show you examples of how to say some of these things later on as well. All right, now we get into the do's. Again, from the story side, make sure you have a single message per slide, right? Remember the 15 points that I showed? It doesn't mean that you need to have 15 slides. It can be more than that. But make sure you only have one single message per slide. And that's the easiest way to, understand and communicate your message to the audience or to the investors. And if they want to, they can easily go back, right? You want to have a combination of the business and the emotion. You want to be able to, like I said, going back to the very beginning, why is it important for me? Why is it important for this startup to exist? That's what we want to say. Again, use case, make it very simple, understand and go through the flow, all of that, numbers or opinions, measurable benefits, and you gotta practice. This is something that you will only get better by practicing, whether it's going in front of a mirror or you just pitching it to you know members of your family, whatever. Just practice and be honest. um, what you should not do, and I see this happening a lot, investor, you're going through the presentation, the investor asks you a question you don't know, but you bullshit your way through. Don't do that. Do not do that. If you don't know, just say, look, that's a great question. I don't have the answer right now with me, but if you give me the opportunity, I can come back and I'll give that answer. So be very, very honest with the numbers and all of that. I remember a while back, there was a startup. A lot of the investors were looking at investing, and the investors wanted me to go through the deck and just to give a confirmation. And it was an app, and I can't remember. And they've said that they had over 50,000 downloads on the Apple App Store. And I did a quick research, and I realized we didn't have at that. This was quite long time back, so maybe about 8 years back. At that time, Sri Lanka didn't have 50,000 um, Apple users. So then I flagged it, sent it across, and then they started doing, and then they're like, oh no, we made a mistake, it's a combination, it's then you lost trust. And ultimately some of the investors didn't invest, some went through it, and it happened to be that the founder was actually kind of taking all this money. He didn't invest in the company, he actually went and bought a car or something, and became very, very ugly afterwards. So you want to be able to be honest no matter what happens. In that moment, if they understand that you are being very brutally honest, that's actually good for you. Right. So these are the examples. So I said, don't say that you want to be a market leader. Instead, something that you can say is, we want to achieve an ARR of 100 million, whatever that target that you have. Even from a technology standpoint, don't say, we have the latest tech stack and all of these things. We save cost. This is the benefit that we're talking about. What's the actual benefit that we are going to give you if you use our solution? All right. Again, problem here, I put it as Sri Lanka, but it can be related to whatever that you're doing. Make it, again, it's numbers driven. And I don't think a lot of people say this anymore. We don't have any competition. But something that you can say is you put your competition down and say, yes, we do have the competition. And recently I've seen, they put this grid, and the company is always on the top right corner, right? But the company hasn't even launched. And the competitors have been there for years. So I always ask, you don't have any customers, you haven't launched. How are you in that place? How did you get there? It doesn't make sense, right? So these are the things where investors look, is this person really have the maturity or the understanding what it takes to get to that point? So it's always fine for you to be behind, which is fine. But then you say, you know what, yes, we are behind, but we are growing at about 10% or 20% month on month, whereas our competitors are down to the single digits. We are taking customers off them. Their customers are ditching their product and they're joining with us. And because of all of this, we can actually get, we are in that trajectory to get to that place. And that's how you can and how you should put it. Right. Any questions before I get into investor insights? You can put it on the chat as well. I don't know if, can I access the chat?
We can take the questions in the end. Chalendar,
okay, sure.
It's fine.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
So Yes, go ahead.
Actually, I first my question is how to find investors.
Your
Main
question is
question,
how to find
yeah,
investors,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Where is
Uh,
their groups and other tips and tricks, please, everything.
yeah, I think so. I basically work very closely with the Indian Angel Network, and I'm sure
Okay,
that there are other angel networks in each cities and communities as well. So I think that's a good place to start. But the honest answer to that question is it's not about you finding an investor. It's about how do you build a relationship with an investor. Like I said, the chances are right now, it's not like 10 years ago, right? There are so many startups. The number of startups are much greater than the number of investors, right? So from an investor standpoint, I have more opportunity, or I have a leverage over which company that I can invest in. So it's about you trying to build a relationship, and think of it like having building a relationship, or going and asking out a girl, or a guy, girl asking a guy out. You don't go up and say, hey, shall we get married tomorrow? It doesn't happen like that. You first go out, you ask, you might go on a few dates, you try to build a relationship, you want to, and that's very much similar, but that's the whole ethos of that whole process. You can definitely leverage platforms like LinkedIn to do, but the best way to find investors is to always get a recommendation from
okay,
someone. So if you already have, if you have friends who are running startups and they have investors, pitch to your friends,
yeah,
hey, I'm doing this, do you think you'll be able to introduce us to your investors to get some feedback?
okay,
And majority of the time, go in that angle, or when you, even if you meet an investor, I'm working on this startup, is it okay, can I pitch it to you, for you, for you to give me feedback, right? So always be welcoming. If you go and ask, hey, I have a startup, I want to pitch to you so that you can invest in me, major 99% of the time the investors are going to say, okay, maybe I'm not interested, I don't know you, what you're doing, so I'm going to say
okay,
no. But if you're
okay,
welcoming and say, look, I'm working, I want to get a third party person's opinion or insights, I want to get a experienced investors insights, and to see what they feel, what I'm doing, whether I'm on the right path. Majority of the time,
okay,
people are happy to give you feedback. Majority of the investors, provided that they have the time, and and that's your window. That's how you create your window, and you go all guns blazing. And you make that
यार हो
impression,
गया है,
right? And that's
पूरा
how you do
करेंगे
it.
लास्ट में पूरा कंप्लीट अभी स्टार्ट कर
Yeah, I guess you received a good answer suggestion, Chalinda. You can mute
Yeah,
yourself and we can go ahead with the
sure.
session.
चार्जिंग हो गया है
Right. Okay. So now
चार्जिंग
I'm
हो
gonna
गया है अभी डिस्चार्जिंग पे
move
जाएगा
move into the investor insights. Uh,
Suraj, can you mute the participant, please?
okay, great. Thank you. Um, so now I want to share a bit of insight. So when investors are evaluating your startup, they're not just, like I said, evaluating you. They're also evaluate sorry the product or the market or what you're trying to. They're also trying to evaluate your personality, because end of the day, this investment, it's a relationship, and they want to make sure that you have qualities that they also value, and you as an entrepreneur also needs to evaluate that about the investor. Is this a person, does this person have qualities or personalities that I value, and I kind of admire or aspire to be? So that's very important. And that's why investors have multiple conversations. When you're pitching to investors, every time you meet an investor, if you're in that fundraising journey, create a list, send them weekly updates. If they're okay, make sure that they give consent. Keep them updated of your journey, and they'll know that you're growing, and sometimes they'll come back. And we do this quite often. I used to do this with all the companies that I used to manage in the past. We used to send updates, you know and they're like, you know what, I like this company, they're doing well, can I meet the entrepreneur? I do that introduction, and initial introduction is about getting to know them. Why, who are you, where are you from, the usual things. um, and that's important. The second thing is, you've heard about product market fit. The other two thing is the founder problem fit and the founder market fit. So what do I mean by this? The founder problem fit is that, is it a problem that the founder himself faces, A, or B, is it a problem that the founder has a lot of unique insights to? That's important for the investor. Uh, the second part of it, again, it's related to the market. Is this founder from that particular market? This is why, so even if you look at, the big companies in India, the big startups, when they try to expand into different markets, they would always pick somebody who is from that market. That's because you want to be able to relate to someone from there. That's how, companies and everything scale. So that's very important. Do this founder, if you're, let's say you're a founder who is from a higher upper middle class family that is building a product for the bottom of the pyramid, but can they move with that community? Are they in it? If you're not, that's still fine, but that means that you need to find a person who can relate to that community, because otherwise your acquisition is going to be a lot more harder. Those are things. The third most important point is coachability. Most of the time, why we won't invest in a company is because the founder is not coachable. He's a one master dog. It's very, very hard for him to take other people's opinion. He's very strong headed, which is fine, but then initial days you want to be able to coach them, because building a business and building a solutions are very, very different. A lot of people are good at building solutions, but that does not mean they're very good at building businesses. And that's why they look at coachability. Other good to have or nice to have things is, prior exposure to risk, uncertainty, tough times. Have they failed in the past? How have they handled failure? Have they taken risk in the past, or is it, this is the first time doing all of this? And then obviously trust, integrity, transparency, all of these things. The reason why I had that in the last is, there is no way to measure integrity. There is no unit to measure trust or transparency, but you always know when it's not there, right? You can't look at a person and say, I trust this person 30%, 40%, 60%, but after a while you can definitely know when the trust is broken. Okay, I don't trust this person. So that's why it's a very subjective thing, and it's all based on individuals, which is why I put it to the last. Make sure you have less than 150 milliseconds. That's why your first impression and everything is very, very critical. And within the first 30 minutes you made a lasting judgment. So even if the investor, if you came and pitched to me, if I'm not, if it doesn't really coincide with my investment thesis and mandate, if you made a good impression, I would still recommend you to someone else that I think might be interested in you. And that's how you should leave that meeting. Don't go to a pitching session making it like a binary. It's either you get funded or not. No, it's not that. You cannot get funded, but still make a lasting impression, which will create more leads to you, and that's important, right? I have a few examples of elevator pitches. I suggest you don't practice or don't be a parrot and do these things. which is something that I always tell people not to do. And for these reasons, don't memorize, because when you go, you get excited and you're going to forget your lines, right? And that's going to be bad. So don't memorize. um, and the other part of memorizing is that it sounds that you have rehearsed it, and that's not impressive. You're just coming on, I'm so and so, I believe, doesn't really impress me. And the other part of it is, depending on the situation, it might be irrelevant for the person. You're coming and pitching to me about something which is related to, let's say, solar, for an example. That's not an industry that I'm looking at. And I'll be like, okay, that's great, but which that shows me that you haven't done enough research about me, my interest, and you're just going and pitching to every single investor that you meet, which is not impressive, right? So don't go for the traditional elevator pitch. I think the traditional elevator pitch is designed for pitching competitions. Then it makes sense. But if you're going and speaking to one-on-one, which is what most startups do, make sure that it's not something that you rehearsed. So here's a very simple template. Hi, my name is, give the name. We are trying to solve the problem. We are in the business of, this is the impact that we are trying to, and our solution saves time, money, whatever, for the market segment. It's a very simple, casual. You can do it in 30 seconds. And this is something that you can use in most places depending on the situation, right? You can even stop with the first two. Hi, my name is this thing, we're trying to solve deforestation. You can stop there. So, and if people are interested, oh, what do you do? Oh, yeah. And then you have, we have this business of, we are in the business of creating this particular impact, and our solution saves this. So it gives you that leverage. You can just say something and see if people bite and there's interest, and then you can say the next things, right? And if the conversation goes on, then if they are interested, then you can talk about how big is the market, how much of traction you have, what are the unique insights that you've had, about your team, your revenue streams, all of that, flows during that discussion. This is essentially, I've designed it for networking sessions and whatnot. And that's where, it becomes useful, right? So I mean, that's essentially is an elevator pitch. It's about the pitching side of it. And this, I'm just going to leave this here. A lot of people think about, when they say building a startup, it's a very nice journey. It is not. You're literally hanging on a cliff on a daily basis, trying to figure out whether you get revenue today, whether you can pay your bills. So it's a very, very tough journey, right? But it's fun. I absolutely love it. I've worked in corporate, much more safer. You get your health insurance, you have all the benefits, you do 8 to 5. You go home, you get to spend time with your family, go out with your friends, all that. But I still love this. It's an addiction, I would say. I love being in that edge. So you want to be you have to get comfortable being on that edge. So I hope this was helpful. I hope everyone learned something. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Hey, Chalan, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hey, this is Krishna. Thanks for your presentation. It was very informative. So,
Not a problem, Krishna.
I have one question when it comes to founder market fit.
Yeah.
So, do investors view when a founder is not from the market, he's trying to solve the problem from. So for example, if someone is from software and is trying to build a F&B product, so how do investors see, like, is this guy a right fit for us to invest?
Right. Good question. So I think Krishna, see, if you are in the software from the industry, you are the ticket. Then they're actually looking at, have you brought your co-founder is from that market, right? Which gives you the opportunity, okay, I'm building this product. Maybe you found out that there was a problem based on a personal experience, and because you're a software engineer, you started building this. Now you need to, before you build too much, you want to, validate it. So you want to go and find a co-founder who is from that particular market, and then bring them on board. And that's the process. What the investor looks for is, what was your process in terms of validating that? How
Okay.
did you validate that? And that's what they're trying to understand.
Okay, got it.
So if you were pitching to me and you said that you are a software engineer, and you build this for, let's say, SME market, for the FMCG market,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
I would look at, okay, what did you do? How did you come up with this problem? How did you find out? Then what did you do? Those are the questions that I would ask. Nothing to do with your solution. It's just
Got
me trying to figure out what was your journey.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Not a problem. If there's no, wait, now I can see the chat. Okay, right. How to find investors? Please provide tips. Please provide your email ID. Okay, that I think we've done. Um, Conveying value to an investor in development projects or a social enterprise. What to keep in mind while conveying value to an investor in a development project or a social enterprise. Okay. This is Meda. Just, if you want to clarify this question, it will be great. But if not, I'll just try to understand, assuming that I've understood your question correctly. Um, when you are in a social enterprise, the main thing is about, the impact. You have the standard SDGs. What are you doing? You want to be able to communicate that. So if you're saying that you are into poverty alleviation, how are you measuring that? What's your current methodology? Is there a standard methodology, or have you adopted a methodology to capture that information? And that's what you essentially say. And that's essentially the value and how people are moving. So for an example, I've invested in a e-commerce company which works with um, cottage industries, women who are building soap and all these things which are organic and natural. So we look at how many families. So if when they joined us, they had an income of 30,000 rupees, and now over a period of 5 or 6 months, their income has grown to 150,000 rupees a month. So we look at that, what that is our impact, and that's the value that we've created. We now gone ahead and done another this thing where we say, hey, instead of giving the entire 150,000 rupees to that family, we've also created a kind of like an education fund for them, where a portion of that revenue goes to that education fund, which then the child or the children in that family can utilize. So that's the value side of it. Because and the reason why we did was, we realized when you're especially working with poor and that segment, no matter how much you increase their revenue, they're still in that stage majority of the time, right? Some there's still poverty. And then we realize, oh, you know what, they do not have the financial literacy. So without financial literacy, whether they earn 30,000 rupees a month or 150,000 or if even 500,000, it doesn't make sense, because they'll just keep on, busting that money. So that's how we started doing that. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That totally did.
Right. Okay. I want to know if. Okay, what's the difference between a active and a passive investor? I mean, it's simple. Active investors, definitely get involved. They might want a board seat, and they want to have help you grow as a business and as a person. If you are an early stage entrepreneur, I would definitely recommend going with an active investor, because don't go after an investor purely for their money. You are most likely, there's a higher chance of you ending up being very bitter. You want to go with a person who will also invest their time to groom you, to help you mentor. Yeah, like I said, building a business, such a massive pressure, and as an entrepreneur, you are actually very lonely person, because you have so much of problems, you can't really air it out, right? And I'll give you a very good simple answer. The first question people ask you is, when they meet you, hey, how are you? And you always have to say, I'm good, I'm great, you have to say some version of that, but inside that things are falling apart. You're under a lot of pressure, you're depressed and all of that, but you can't say that. So that's why you want to find an active mentor who get involved, who give you that guidance and help you become a better entrepreneur, a better human, essentially. How does a pitching to an investor differ from a pitching to a customer? Well, the customer, I would say both are both have a lot of similarities. Both, you are essentially trying to get your money from their pocket in both instances, right? And similarly, you're selling a product in both, whether it's the product is a solution or the product is the company. The difference is that if you have sold to customers and they have paid you, selling to investors become easier, because that is traction, that is validation, and investors like validation. Obviously, when you're pitching to customers, you're not giving out equity in the company. You're selling a product, and thereby generating revenue. And I always say having revenue is far better than giving up equity and making money. This is Millie. Typically, founders have concern that their IP will be lost if they talk to many investors. What is the best approach one should take? Honestly, Millie, I don't think, at least the investors, that's why you should do due diligence. The investors who are actively interested in investing in startups, who are really passionate about startups, aren't really interested in, because they don't have time to take your IP and build a company. They honestly don't. So I think it's good to talk to people. This is very common. You and I have this, and it sucks. And I've had people stolen my ideas, the work that I do, and when it happens, it really sucks. I can guarantee on that. But looking back, I also feel that it's good that it happened, because I knew what it felt like, and now I'm a little bit more cautious. And now I learn how to read people, and the only way that I was able to do that is by getting screwed, people having stolen. And I've had people who have given me advice, not to do something, career advice, don't do this, it might not go too well for your career. They call it advice. I've had that, and I've had people asked commissions, all of these things. But the worst is when I've had the work that I've done stolen. But looking back, I'm glad it happened, because now when I read people, I know I can read them very fast, and I know, okay, this is what I want to avoid. So there is no, I don't know, I don't have an answer, to be honest. I don't have like a template. It's just that I've just got good at reading people, and it'll happen. It's very hard to avoid. It's very hard to avoid heartbreak as well. So it's similar to that, I would say. how to research about the potential market when startup is in education. uh, get primary data, go to the market, do it. I'll give you a good example. We invested in a company. This guy was in his 40s, and what he did was, the reason why we invested was not because of his product. His product was crap, and somebody like a 15-year-old could have build a much more better product in over a week. The only reason why we invested in him was he was 40 at the time. He shaved and he went to a tuition class over the weekend as a student for 3 months to understand the problem. And when he was pitching to us, he had so much of insights that no one knew about. And that's the only reason we went and invested. And it's one of the best companies that we've invested. Right now he can go to a university or he can go to a school. He can sell and convert, within a day, because he has that, insight. So get your primary data first, then look at your secondary data, documents that have been published, research paper, students would have done it, university students, by any means. Is it good to pitch to an investor who already have a competitor in their pool? So I'm assuming you have a competitor, your competitors, investors most likely would not invest. Give me a second. Most investors will not listen to your pitch. At least in Sri Lanka, that very rarely happens. They would say that, look, we've invested in this particular company, hence, we'll pass. Is being a single member founding a disadvantage? Definitely yes. You want to have a co-founder. Having a co-founder is very, very important. Like I said, you have a lot of pressure and you want to be able to download that to someone. It's very important. I would not start a company being a lone wolf. It's very, very hard. What do you look? Oh wow. Okay, hold on. What do you look in a startup founded by a student who don't have any prior work experience? Honestly, I don't look at degrees. I myself is a school dropout, and I didn't have a good academic career when I was younger. So I can't judge people based on their education, this thing. So the only thing that I look for is, have these guys rolled up the sleeves? Are they doing the dirty work? That's the most important thing for me. Are they on their hands and knees, getting their hands dirty, getting their hands burned? Are they trying to do, or are they trying to build a startup on a PowerPoint? If they're building a startup on a PowerPoint, I'm not interested in listening. I always encourage, go out there, get that. And so whether you're a student or not, it doesn't really matter. We'll want to discuss some live pitch decks or elevator pitches after the Q&A if we have some extra time. Unfortunately, I have a hard stop at 12:50, which is in about another 20 minutes. So not at this time. Sorry about that. Wow, that's a big question.
Hey, Chalna, Vanya here. I can probably help you with that question. So I'm part of the Headstart team, and I've read that question. So I'll just brief it down for you. The question is, how important are what are the prerequisites for getting funded or for talking to an investor? How important is the legal compliance or the kind of structure the company has, and stuff like that is important. And if it is, like, what are the few points that one should have already in place before even approaching investors?
Yeah,
Right.
thanks, Vanya. In fact, I can ask this question. I can add more details, more color to that if it's okay.
Thanks. Yeah, cool. Go ahead.
Sanida, first of all, thanks for this beautiful session. It's thought-provoking and very helpful.
Not
I
a
have a
problem.
very specific question. So, I built up a venture that cuts across different countries in edtech, and the focus was over last 3-4 months was completely getting the business up and running on the ground, that it's working, the traction is there. Users and customers, both of them, are really happy and excited about it. So we have done all that. What we deprioritized was, since there was the co-founders are like, we have known each other for 20 plus years, so there's a very very strong degree sense of comfort. So we have deprioritized building, spending time on the cap table. One guy has just gone ahead and built the entity on that their name. That's fine with us right now. What we thought was, when we are ready for the fundraise by the end of this month or next month, then probably we'll address these things in parallel. So when you look at a company, how important it is for you that everyone should be on the cap table and it should be completely clean. Literally, we do business in a couple of countries where we have not set up the entity yet. We will now set it up. So,
Right. Okay, got it. First of all, just let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It's Jatin.
Jatin, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Super. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jatin, for the question. And first of all, congratulations in getting to where you are. It's a very challenging, especially this year. It's been horrible.
Yeah.
So the first thing, and I'm assuming this is your first round of funding, right?
Yes, this is first round of funding. We have
See,
not
if
done it.
I think if I were to evaluate it, I would just look at the traction and what that traction tells me about the opportunity.
Mhm.
Right, that's the main thing that I'm looking. I don't want to get distracted with the cap tables, all of that things. I just want to understand, again, as much as investors, they say that they want to help entrepreneurs, all of that. End of the day, they want to make money, right?
Exactly.
All that other BS, they'll say it to your face because that's what gets them social capital. But end of the day, they want the hard cash, right? So similarly, I would look at it. Okay, how is there a big potential? What's the opportunity? What have you guys done? And if I am really interested, if the investor is really invested in the venture, then they would work with you ideally to structure the deal. Great. And in your situation, it's easy to do because there's no outside capital. It's me who's coming in first. If I like you, I like your team, I like what you guys have done, then I would just say, hey, let's just sit down, let's structure this something where both of us are comfortable or all of us are comfortable. And they, based on their experience, they will come up with a few solutions as well. Okay. You are more than happy to go and get an external third party, or like a lawyer or someone to evaluate it. Perfectly fine, but they'll be happy to discuss that. Absolutely. And it's not a problem. So don't really worry about it on that sense. The second part of it is, if let's say you started off with let's say 2 others or 3 others, and if their contribution is critical for the venture, then definitely I want them to be part of the company.
So for us, pretty much simple. It's just 2 of us, and then I kind of deprioritize that let's not focus on this cap table and everything right now. So that's where I was wondering whether we should drop everything and prioritize this, because there's a lot of paperwork involved in VAT exemption and all these things. Should we focus there and get the lawyers involved right now, or should we just keep running with the business? And
run with the business, because what will also happen is, depending on the investor who's interested in you, they might have different views.
Got it.
So if you do it now, if you lock it in, and then let's say there's an investor who comes in and who doesn't like that structure, changing that structure becomes a bit more complicated as well.
So it might be a blessing in disguise then.
It might be exactly blessing in disguise. Majority of the time, what the investors would do, or even we do it, is, I think it happens in India very often, we'll put a vesting schedule with a cliff, which kind of solves a lot of these things, taking it forward.
Perfect. Thank you for answering the question, man. Thanks a lot.
Not a problem.
Very helpful.
All right. I think I managed to go through all that.
Yeah, Chalana, I think we don't have any questions in the chat now. So anybody else who has, we have a couple of minutes left. So anybody who has any additional questions can probably unmute themselves and ask the questions if they want to.
Yeah, don't feel shy. You can keep your video off if you do feel shy. So that way it's all good. But let's make it interaction. I mean, until there is a question and a few things, I think a lot of people are going to say no, and that's fine, right? Don't take it personally. uh, Try to understand why they're saying no, whether it's related to you as individuals, or whether it's related to the business model, the revenue streams, the pricing model, um, the market, the technology. Why? Try to understand that and leverage that to solve that particular piece when you pitch the next time. And that's how you essentially reach out to and improve yourself. Like I said, I've had so many no's. I think even in our fund it was going to be for 100 angel investors, but to reach the 100 I would have spoken to at least 300 from January this year. And each conversation is a minimum 1 hour conversation, and you're pitching to them. So just think about 1 hour into 300 people. You lose track, and it's very, very hard. Some people will say very nasty things, and some people will genuinely say why they don't want to be a part of it, but that's all good. So you try to take all of that information and then improve your pitch as much as possible. You're not going to get it right on day one. It's not designed to get it right on day one. So be comfortable with that.
So Chalana, I had a question. Most of the early stage founders or first time founders struggle with this, I think. That once you've decided to enter a market, it's obviously important to know how big the market opportunity is. But I think most of us struggle with how to calculate that, because obviously we can refer to a lot of reports that's available in the public domain. But
Right.
if we want to check it for ourselves, to calculate so-called TAM, SAM, and addressable market. So do you have any tips on that? Like, how can we do that?
Majority of the time, all those numbers are BS, right?
True. I mean, that's what. But I also feel the same. But then I think a lot of investors focus a lot on that. And I mean, at early stage, I'm sure. I mean, as founders, also we, I mean, think it's quite redundant. But I mean, I don't know. A lot of people do ask for it, so it's kind of
Yeah,
important.
they want to understand, right? That's why I said, when I said to be honest, uh, majority of the time this data is, see, if the data is available, that's at least something that you can refer to, right? But your problem arises when the data is not available, and then it's based on your the way that you calculated it. So I'll give you an example, and I probably will be able to link this to even India. So I'm assuming everybody knows about Red Bus. So we have a similar solution here in Sri Lanka, which I engaged about 4-5 years back. And everybody was, the market size was, they were giving it in terms of the number of buses, right? And that's how even the available data, it was all talked about. Okay, there is 7,000 buses, long distance buses in Sri Lanka, and this is a market. And I was thinking to myself, that doesn't sound too big. How do I make this interesting for the investors? So like what you said, if I tell the investors it's 7,000 buses, that's not going to move the needle anywhere. But then I realized, when you're booking, you're not really booking a bus, you're booking a seat within a bus. And then on average you will have 50 seats. So now all of a sudden your market size is 7,000 into 50. And then each bus is, you're not gonna, as an individual, as a passenger, you're not seated in that throughout the journey. You might get off, you might do multiple stops or whatever. Then I realized, okay, an average bus does 4 trips a day. So it's 50,000 into, 7,000 buses into 4 per day into 30 days. And then the average ticket price, then, you start seeing the uh, market size in dollars. And now when you look at it, it's $1 billion market. And that was very interesting for the investors because, Sri Lanka being a very tiny nation, there are very few opportunities where the market size is $1 billion, right? And that's the way. So when you are doing a solution, forget about there being competition, what the competition numbers are saying and all of that. You need to collect some of these data points and then try to calculate that. If you speak to the very investment bankers, this is something that they're good at, right? Even if you look at, let's say, Google, one of the questions within Google that they ask is, how many golf balls can you fit in a school bus? It's arbitrary, but then there is a way of calculating that as well. So for you to first to be able to calculate it, you need to understand a little bit of data points and then essentially use your intuition to kind of connect these data points and calculate that market. In the event that you do have data, that's why I always say first collect primary data and then look at secondary data and see whether there is a correlation. If there's a correlation, that's good. You can use your primary data to strengthen your secondary data, and then you can go to market with that. But then in the event that you don't have any data which is published, you need to be able to collect different data points and build the model so that you can present. It's easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. Thanks, that was helpful.
Any other questions? Yeah. Do you want to wait, Chalinda, for 2 minutes or?
No, I think we're done. I think
Okay.
the participants can reach out to you, and then maybe we can connect later on as well. I think need to go. Multiple calls, emails. But I mean, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it was great. I like I said, I hope everyone learned something and it was helpful for you to pick up a few things which will allow you to kind of fine tune. Oh, lovely. Fine tune your pitch, and hopefully now you get more introductions to more investors. And just one point, if you are reaching out to investors on LinkedIn and so on, make sure again you research, and if you're reaching out, make sure that you personalize it as well. Just don't bombard them in their inbox. It's not, again, it's like I go back, it's not going to create a good impression for you as well. So thank you so much, Priyanka and rest of the team for this opportunity.
Thanks, Shalina. Thanks a lot for coming to the session today and on a weekday and sharing your insights with us. I'm sure this session was really useful for everybody, all the folks who joined today with us. Thanks a lot once again, and hope we have a good session in the future as well. So
Lovely. Thank you
great.
so much.
Thanks everybody for joining in. Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.